3 Triple Z.
92.3
FM.
The following program is in English.
Danger. You're tuned in to L'chaim, to life, with your host Morris Klein, who just happens to be my baby brother.
Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Shalom. Welcome to L'chaim, to life. We have another full-on program ahead, so let's get straight into it. You are tuned into L'chaim, to life, Jewish life and more, here on 92.3 FM 3 Triple Z.
It's a pleasure to introduce Douglas Altabef to listeners of the L'chaim program here on 3 Triple Z. After graduating from Harvard Law School, Douglas had a successful career in money management in New York. And since 2014, in addition to assisting Israeli businesses and NGOs with organizational strategies, he's been the chairman of the board at Im Tirtzu, a non-profit organization dedicated to strengthening the values of Zionism in Israel as a Jewish and democratic state. Douglas, welcome to L'chaim.
Thank you, Morry. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Im Tirtzu works to strengthen the belief in the justice and the importance of the Zionist cause, and opposes the foreign-funded organisations that seek to delegitimize Israel. Douglas, could you speak to these aims and how the organisation is going about achieving?
Sure. At the outset, I would say that many people are surprised to hear that an Israeli organization needs to focus on nurturing Zionism within Israel and fighting anti-Zionism within Israel, because one would assume that there would be great consensus on this matter, but sadly that's not the case. Im Tirtzu, by the way, the name comes from Theodore Herzl's famous adage, Im Tirtzu zu lo agada. If you will it, Im Tirtzu, it is no dream. Herzl, of course, was referring to the idea of a Jewish state. We use the name because we believe that the Jewish state must continue to be willed. It's not a static situation, it's a dynamic situation of nurturing, of protecting, of elevating. Our origins are from right after the 2006 war, when soldiers went back to the campus, specifically Hebrew University, and were being told that the army that they just fought in was committing war crimes and crimes against humanity, and the country that they were defending was a colonialist occupier. This coming from professors at Hebrew University. So the reaction was to push back, and in fairly quick order, an organized grassroots bottom-up organization was created, and it spread very quickly to other campuses, because guess what? This was not a phenomenon limited to just Hebrew University. So Im Tirtzu has always been very strong on our nation's campuses. We have a two-pronged mission which comes from Tanakh, Swor Merah ve'oseh tov. Distance yourself from evil and do good. The distancing from evil is about fighting anti-Zionism, whether it is on campuses or whether it is calling out anti-Israel NGOs which are being funded by foreign governments, specifically by the EU and European countries, in order to delegitimize Israel. And the Oseh Tov is a function of elevating the values of Zionism, teaching, nurturing within our society. And while our origins were on campuses, we have really grown over the years to become the largest grassroots Zionist organization in Israel. And I say that based on the fact that we have a Facebook following Hebrew that's greater than 250,000, an English language following greater than 110,000, which is clearly the largest in Israel. And we have now 35 civilian branches, groups of adults all over the country who want to partake in our activities, who want to be part of what we are doing to protect and nurture Zionism. And we've really grown to become what I would call the voice of Middle Israel. We're very popular in this country, we're very well known, and that, I think, is in large part because our values reflect very closely those of our citizenry. Israel is a country with a very strong citizenry. We often have a very dysfunctional government, but the citizenry remains quite strong, quite understanding of the uniqueness of Israel's place in the world, the only Jewish state, surrounded by adversaries. And there, a great many Israelis, remember, come from either Arab countries, the Mizrahim, or Russians coming from the former Soviet Union. So the commonality there is they have each seen a movie, so to speak, that they don't want to see the sequel to. They have been inoculated against progressive, woke, leftist dogma, and they have no interest in going down those roads because they have experience that has taught them better. So we have a very well-aware, if not necessarily always articulate, but very well-aware citizenry, and we like to think that we are mirroring what they are about. And what we are about, and you talked about it briefly, is to protect Israel as a Jewish and democratic state. We're not political. We don't take positions on political issues such as one state, two states, three states. We do say that Jerusalem should never be divided, but we are not opining on the Rabbanut or about basic social or political issues. What we are opining about is the need for Israel to maintain its sense of sovereignty, sense of self, to make sure that our citizens and our leaders especially know that it is a tremendous mistake to do things in the name of accommodation or compromise that are tantamount to being seen as weakness by those who oppose us. We want Israel to stay strong, we want Israel to stay self-aware, and we do that, as I said, in a variety of different ways. We've become a fairly visible and known force, so to speak, within the Knesset, our legislature, because Knesset members know that we are not political, we're not tied to any party or groups of parties. We report, as it were, to the citizens of our country, and we like to think that we are walking the Zionist walk besides just talking the Zionist talk. And I'll give you a very small example, but I think it's rather telling. A couple of years ago, 2 soldiers came into our offices independently, right around the same time, and each said the same thing. I have been denied service in a restaurant because I showed up in uniform. And we said, can't be. And they said, well, it happened. So we went back with them to the restaurants in question. One was an Arab restaurant in Haifa, one was a Jewish restaurant in Tel Aviv, and the same thing happened. So we took that fact to friends in the Knesset, and within a matter of weeks, legislation was passed quite overwhelmingly in the Knesset that no soldier in uniform could be denied service in a public accommodation. Now, is that earth-shattering? No. But it's what I call walking the Zionist walk. It's about what you want your society to reflect as a Zionist society. And there have been many, many instances of things like this that we have done to raise the level of awareness of our citizens to the fact that there are those, unfortunately, within our society who would seek to denigrate Israel, who would seek to delegitimize Israel. And of course, there are those in our society who have no agenda other than to hug Israel and to extol the virtues of Zionism.
And how strong do you think that movement is in Israel, the anti-Zionist movement, as you said?
You know, it's like a lot of things in this country that are not necessarily strong in terms of the popular support that they have or the number of supporters that they have. However, they do enjoy great financial resources. They do enjoy great placement on campuses, within media, within our culture to some extent. And so there is, and even sad to say, within our judiciary system, you can't look at it from a perspective of the numbers of followers. You look at it from the perspective of their influence, and their influence is significant. By the same token, our influence, an organization like Im Tirtzu, which gets no government funding, is totally dependent on the largesse of our private supporters, hits way, way, way above our weight in terms of our own, budget reality. We have thousands of volunteer activists who participate with us in a given year in terms of our various activities. And so I would say that the issue of influence is a two-way street in this country. And of course, our real mission is to blunt and counterbalance the influence of those typically on the left who would want to delegitimize Israel and our mission as a Zionist Jewish state.
Recently, you wrote an opinion piece that appeared in the Jerusalem Post titled, "If Israel does not assert sovereignty, it will lose it." The opening line includes a statement that Israel is suffering from a crisis of conviction. Could you explain what you meant by that? And do you believe there is a non-violent solution to that crisis?
Yes, I believe that crisis of conviction is a sense of self-awareness, a sense of the need to stand up for ourselves. Morry, we live in a difficult neighborhood. The Middle East is not like Western Europe. The Middle East is not like North America. The Middle East is not like Australia. We are surrounded by adversaries. And the Arab mindset is acutely sensitive to issues of power. Power is either being demonstrated, is being exuded, is being made manifest, or in the absence of power is not compromise, not reason, not accommodation, but weakness. And weakness is meant to be exploited. So a crisis of confidence here means the unwillingness to exert our control, to affirm our sovereignty, and to say this is our place. Like it or not, this is our place. We have no designs on anyone. This is not an exclusionist idea. It is to say that, Israel as sovereign in a Jewish democratic state is an extraordinarily gracious sovereign, protects the rights of all its minorities, respects religious and ethnic sensibilities of all groups. And by the way, many, many Arabs know this. And while they're very happy to condemn Israel, given the choice to be part of the PA, say if there were such a thing as a state, they do say, no thank you, we'll stay here. We want to be here. So sometimes it's us meaning Israeli Jews, who need to be reminded that this is our country, and we do ourselves and we do everyone else a great benefit by making sure that all concerned know that we are very comfortable exerting control and affirming our sovereignty.
Because you did write in that article that you felt that because of the violence around the Al-Aqsa Mosque, that Israel should basically prohibit that site, and that any violence that occurred would occur off campus, if you like.
Right. Well, what I was referring to there is you have a pattern. I refer to it as a dog whistle. Al-Aqsa is under attack. Okay, Al-Aqsa is never under attack. But if you say it enough times, you get a lot of Arabs all riled up and wanting to head for the barricades, wanting to head to Al-Aqsa to make sure it's being protected. Well, this is sort of like a Greek tragedy. We know exactly what is going to be said. We know how it plays out. And we should be a little bit smarter than to be completely reactive. We should know that come next Ramadan, the cry will go out that Al-Aqsa is under attack. So guess what? Guys, last Ramadan, there were riots. So this Ramadan, no one's going. All right? Let's learn a lesson. No one's going this year. And maybe if things quiet down, next year everyone can go back. And I said in the article there probably will be riots because of that, but there won't be riots on Temple Mount because no one would be allowed to go there. This is not designed to punish people. This is designed to make people understand what the situation is, what the protocol is, who's in charge. Arabs are great in understanding that. It is a dogma of Islam that, you don't fight an invincible force. Okay, so we have to be like what Jabotinsky said. We have to be an iron wall. We have to become an invincible force. And if we are, and when we are, guess what? The Arabs will understand that completely and live with it and abide by it. So the ball is in our court. The ball is in our court to assert that sovereignty, to be strong, to stand up straight, and to say, guys, we are that invincible force. We're very happy to accord you all the respect and all the deference that your faith requires. But the price of admission is for you to understand that there are rules here, that there is a modus operandus here, and a modus vivendi here. And if you get with it, we'll be very good neighbors. And if not, there's going to be consequences. That's all.
Douglas Altabef, Chairman of the Board of Im Tirtzu, sincere thanks for providing our listeners with an insight into the aims of the organisation and how it is going about achieving them, as well as arguing quite strongly the view that Israel must assert its sovereignty or risk losing it. Thank you for appearing on the L'chaim program. Very much appreciated.
Thank you, Morry. It's my pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Douglas Altabef with his Im Tirtzu, an outstanding organisation. I recall Im Tirtzu being on the Ben Shapiro program May last year, discussing the ugly Arab violence in Lod in support of the Hamas war, with their over 4,500 rockets fired into Israel. Im Tirtzu is very active on social media, combating anti-Israel NGOs and others with their anti-Israel anti-Semitism. Please follow and support Im Tirtzu on social media. Great interview, Morry. Great work. I loved it. Right, you will find a recording of tonight's program at www.omni.fm/shows/L'chaim-2-live. That is L'chaim, LCHAIM-2-live. A selection of L'chaim podcasts are also available at JWire, the digital Jewish news daily for Australia and New Zealand. Or go to the Jewish Life page on the Social Blueprint Jewish Resources website. If you'd like to contact us here at L'chaim, our email is lchaim3zzz@gmail.com. For only $16, please consider becoming a member of the Jewish group here at 3ZZZ. And for seniors, it's just $11. Click on 3zzz.com.au. On the application form, please clearly indicate that you are joining the Jewish group. Many thanks again to Team L'chaim, Dr. George Mankey, the executive producer, Dr. Morry Frenkel, and Jeff Deegan. So thank you for tuning in, and please join us again on L'chaim. My name is Morris Klein. I'm Yisrael Chai, and peace.